Sky Bet League 2 had itself a bit of a derby game between Bristol Rovers and Swindon. It was the first of these for a good few years, and it was big in every single way. Firstly, Ian Holloway, son of Bristol Rovers, made hundreds of appearances as a player, managed hundreds of games as their manager, and in over 800 games as a manager in the English football leagues, this was the first time he'd ever managed against Bristol Rovers. Wow. And it went pretty well. Swindon beat Bristol Rovers by 3-0. Bristol Rovers' 10th league defeat in a row. Darrell Clarke has been sacked, which we will discuss in due course. But let's celebrate this Swindon win. A big win for them after a pretty limp and lifeless midweek defeat to Cheltenham Town, and with a pretty significant injury list as well. At least 8 first-teamers out and unavailable for this one. But they've got a good squad. They sold a youngster in Botan Amin for a few $100K at the end of the window, and I think that really helped them to make sure that they had a big squad for Ian Holloway to work with to try and secure promotion. They've also done really well in the Cups this year, and I think that's helped win them some football fortune as well, and these things are significant. And this is why a team like Swindon, unlike maybe some of their peers, can handle an injury crisis like the one they're going through. An absolute worldie from Snowden to put them ahead. Half volley, 25 yards out, starts it outside the post, but with the outside of his foot on the half volley, just brings it back into the corner. Absolutely sensational. Absolutely loved it. And Snowden's an interesting one because he's a young player. He'd never really had any senior experience before, but he'd been at City and then he'd been at Leeds United. And that's the sort of player that Swindon Town want to be picking up age 20. He's been brilliant for them this season in wide roles, both wing back and further forward. Him and Munro, who's on loan from Aston Villa, have had a huge part to play in Swindon's success as young, energetic, enthusiastic, attacking wing backs with quality in the final third. And when you consider that, I think I'm right in saying they have something like 6 and 7 goal contributions respectively. They really are providing a lot to this Swindon side. Snowden putting them ahead. The second goal is a near post flick from a set piece from former Rovers player Ollie Clarke, and the third goal is the most deadly player in League 2 this season, Aaron Drynham, finishing brilliantly. One of those finishes that he makes look very easy from the edge of the box, first time sweeping it into the top corner. It's not easy. League 2 strikers don't find that easy. But the nick that Drynham is in, even having served a lengthy suspension, and having his sort of goal-scoring streak a little bit, disrupted. Very, very impressive. Drynham then gets sent off. The second one is he gets booked for a dive. Pretty sure he was pulled back. I think that was unfortunate. He'll miss 2 games now, which is very frustrating from a Swindon point of view. Ripley made some great saves in goal for them. For them, it's just a fantastic afternoon, and I bet they enjoyed it. From Bristol Rovers' point of view, it's the classic, isn't it? Go behind to a worldie after a fairly even start, concede a sloppy set piece because that's your vibe, and then get opened up chasing the game and concede a third. Oh, and the opposition keeper pulls off some big saves as well. It's the kind of game that happens, George, when you're low on confidence and when you've lost a lot of matches in a row, but in losing 10 in a row. It's the first time since Notts County 2016-2017 that a League 2 team has lost 10 games in a row, and Darrell Clarke has been sacked.
Yeah, no surprise there. I think any manager, when you lose 10 in a row, has to expect this is going to come. Yeah, no surprise there. I think any manager, when you lose 10 in a row, is probably expecting to get the sack, despite him. You know, I think there are a lot of Bristol Rovers fans who obviously are happy with this decision. I think more than most clubs who lose 10 in a row, I think there are a lot who don't blame Clarke and who are looking at those further up the pyramid or the club hierarchy as to who's to blame. And I think in the coming weeks, we're probably going to see some protests come out of Bristol Rovers about the way that the club is being run, which is unsurprising given their demise not only over the last 10 games, but over the last couple of seasons. My kind of hot take on this is that I reckon whoever is appointed Bristol Rovers manager is probably going to look like a bit of a genius in a few weeks, because this is properly one of those runs where it looks terrible, but by any measurement, the performances aren't good. Like, I'm not saying they're a good team, but there's no way that if they continue playing the way they're playing, they are going to continue to lose games in the way that they are. Like, it is a statistical anomaly that from the goal scoring opportunities that they are creating, they've only scored 3 goals in those 10 games. On the betting show on Thursday, I went through it. and I listed the amount of shots they've taken. If you look at not ntc20.com and Not the Top Table, which is our expected goals tables that we publish over 5-game and 10-game periods, it was published before the weekend's game, so it doesn't take into account what happened on Saturday. But over that 10-game period prior to that, Bristol Rovers had a 43.4% XG ratio. So a losing XG ratio, like they're behind, but 1.15 XG per game over 10 games should equate to 12 goals, and instead they've scored 3. The same can be said about Saturday's game, where, yes, as you mentioned, Drynen's finish was brilliant. The Snowden's goal to start off with was excellent. Really good finishing from their opposition. Swindon fans will say, yeah, it's because we're a good team with good players. For sure. But for Darryl Clark, he's sitting there being like, you haven't had a shot in the first 16 minutes. You then had a shot on a corner. It's come out to you from 25 yards. You smacked it in the goal, and then you've scored your next 2 shots. Like, when are you going to miss? And on the other hand, when we have opportunities, either the keeper makes a save or we hit the crossbar or whatever else. Like, it is just one of those runs that happens at football clubs where you just cannot buy something going your way in order to stop the rot. And normally, and this is what is often called a new manager bounce, things are going to turn. And when things hit the nadir, like when things cannot get any worse, you sack the manager, you bring someone else in, and maybe there is a little bit of like a pep in players' step, or maybe players who, had lost the faith in Darryl Clark might, shoot with more confidence or whatever else, or have a point to prove to a new manager. There might be some like intangible parts of it which do impact things, but realistically, the performances between both boxes don't have to change, and results can change very quickly. And if I was an agent for managers, and obviously this is ignoring the concerns that the fans have over the ownership and everything else, because that is obviously something, but from a purely performance perspective, this is a team who are massively underperforming their underlying numbers, who have what looks like one of the most talented squads in the league, but has surely a wage bill that is within the top 7. Like, this is all set up for someone to come in, for variance to kick in, and for things to get better very quickly, because there's no way, if you consider the clubs, there'll be a lot of Gas fans out there who think their team are going down now because of this run. To go down, you've got to finish below Harrogate Town, you've got to finish below Newport County. As bad as they've been, right now there's no question that Bristol Rovers are still a better football team than those. They just have to find a way to stop conceding goals and to finish their chances. And given the players they've got in their squad, like Cavern, Ford, like these are players, Satiriu, these are players who have shown in the past that they can score goals and should score goals. So, intrigued to see who they turn to. John Brady, a name that's mentioned, as is Matt Bloomfield. Yeah, which would, both would make sense.
It sounds like, and this might be extrapolating what I've just heard into something completely insane, but it sounds like you might be the first to predict that Matt Bloomfield takes Bristol Rovers up next season.
From the National League?
No. Yeah. Settles this season, eases away from relegation fears, gets the good vibes pumping, and makes the most of that juicy wage bill next season to the tune of promotion.
I quite like the idea of John Brady after the whole Cobblers, Bristol Rovers mayhem, going to the Mem and taking them back to where they came, well, where they went that time under someone else.
Yeah, I mean, Darryl Clark has certainly been suggesting either directly or indirectly in post-match interviews that the squad is essentially sort of rotten as a whole, and that can be quite hard to turn around, but see where they turn from here. George, Salford beating Cole U 4-3 from 3-1 down makes that the game of the weekend in League Two.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe the game of the weekend in the whole of the EFL, because this was
Doncaster 3.
I think when you're a team and you win 4-3 when you're 3-1 down, that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was crazy. 2 very fun teams, although Colchester recently had kind of worked out a way to still be very fun from an attacking standpoint, but had worked out how to stop conceding so many chances. And also, what you forget when I'm calling the game of the weekend, it's because who scored the 3rd Salford goal and got the assist for the winner? Yeah, Fabio Borini. He then ran off with his arms pointed out towards the stand. It was probably a family member, but I really like the idea it was Carl Robinson, massive Liverpool fan, bringing Borini to the club.
Why didn't he do the knife in the mouth celebration?
He retired it.
Yeah, but it's funny you say that. I worked out for weekend notes on ntt20.com that this was his first EFL goals for Swansea, 2011.
Nice.
Almost 15 years since
Love
that.
it.
How good is that?
He's still got the passion burning.
Big time.
Anderson finished from a rebound to take the lead for Colchester before Kadeem Harris, who was very lively on the day, scored a great goal to make it 1-1. Iandolo with a nice finish to make it 2-1 before Reed scored a brilliant left-footed goal, really nice into the top left-hand corner. Such a good player, a player that I'm really enjoying this season. Made it 3-1, and it kind of felt like, for those of us who bet on Colchester, like that was probably going to be the point secured. But what did we know? Oluwo, who keeps popping up with big goals for Salford this season, made it 3-2 before that Borini penalty that we mentioned. Luke Garbutt had a loan spell at Colchester. Obviously one of these Everton players that seems to go on loan to pretty much every single EFL club, but scored a couple of good goals there, and he went very close to the free kick early on in the game. And a couple of things I liked about the winning goal. Firstly, I don't think there are many, and this might be like a little bit outcome biasy, but I don't think there are that many League Two strikers who do what Borini did, who gets on the ball basically in the 6-yard box, and rather than like trying to swivel and shoot or do something crazy, just kind of carries it backwards a bit, looks up, sees Garbutt on the edge of the box and just lays it back to him. Like the composure was really good. Yeah. Garbutt then hits this ball so well, and it reminds me so much of a tennis player who hits like a down the line forehand or backhand, whichever one, and it's right on the line, and they do this weird little jump as it lands, and the hope to see it land and nestle on the right side or on the line. And Garbutt hits this ball right on the line of the post, and he does that same like tennis player jump.
It's in, Luke.
And just sees it goes in. He absolutely loses it, takes off his shirt, 4-3, and they see the game out despite there being 10 more minutes of added on time. Absolute heartbreak for Danny Cowley and Colchester United. But for Salford City, just a huge win in their bid to get up to League One for the first time.
I want to point out that Salford City have been doing something very unusual this season, which I think is probably pretty interesting for most neutrals who like this stuff. Cameras in the dressing room and releasing Carl Robinson's halftime, pre-match, post-match team talks. Now, Robinson is larger than life. You don't need me to tell you that. The way that he speaks to his players, I genuinely think will shock some people who don't know what football dressing rooms are like. It is pretty remarkable stuff, and I want to say thank you to Salford for putting this on. Obviously, you know, they're no strangers to a documentary. This is something a little bit different, and it's on their YouTube channel. And yeah, I mean, if you're the sort of person that wants to watch interesting, different inside the game content, I think that is it's worth a watch. You get to see lovely Alex Bruce say some words as well every now and again, very much the yin to Carl Robinson's yang. But we've got to be better defensively. He does like to say that, and they do, but they won anyway, 4-3. Notts County beat Grimsby 2-0. Now, big result, big week for Notts. They beat MK and they beat Grimsby. A fantastic return of 6 points from those two tricky fixtures. They've moved into the top three as a result. Now, it was a tight game, and it was won by Notts County's strikers, Matthew Dennis and Alassana Jatta. It's greedy, isn't it, having Dennis and Jatta in League Two?
Two good players.
Are they? I mean, they're two of the top 5 strikers probably in the league. They are also, statistically, when you look at non-penalty goals per 90, there's Matthew Dennis, third most in League Two, 0.75 per 90. There's Jatta, fifth, 0.61 per 90. When you have two strikers who are combined scoring 1.36 goals per 90, you're in a pretty good spot. Drynan is above Dennis in second place, Nicky Kabamba in first, but that's basically because he gets a lot of minutes off the bench, so it's a pretty small sample size. Daniel Kanu in fourth as well. Yes, I can. And it kind of, I've been thinking a bit about Notts in the last few days. I've been trying to make head and tail of them this season because under Martin Patterson, they have felt a bit different. He is a slightly different type of manager to the sort that they've had previously. It's been going much better than a lot of people feared. There was a lot of unease around the announcement, and in particular, you know, the way that the club described how things were going to work. It is working. Like, let's be honest, this is a classic case of a club communicating something in a way that, like, we didn't know. We didn't like this idea of a technical board meeting after games and going through things and maybe giving the manager some advice. That sounded like, you know, a betrayal of the cult of the manager and the fact that everything comes down to them. I fell into it. You fell into it to an extent. Other people fell really hard into it. It's been absolutely fine. Like what we tried to say in mitigation was that Notts County operate completely differently to basically any other club at this level, and they have done for ages. So at the very least, they are consistent with the way that they work, and it is a way that has brought the club a decent amount of success, you have to say, over the last 5 years or so. So I guess an apology from me to those at Notts for not kind of trusting that actually I think their way of doing things is a pretty good way of running a football club at this level. They're not the most exciting Notts County that we've seen in the last few years. They're a good side with a pretty high floor. A bit less onus on possession under Martin Patterson, but they still do have like 55% of the ball. I think that allows them to keep the ball well away from their goal pretty well, and they are so much more resilient defensively than they have been in previous years. They are so much better at stopping opposition transition attacks as they have been in the last few years, and so their defensive record is much better. They are much less sexy in attack. They don't have a Crawley or a Ruben Rodriguez, and Jody Jones is finding it really hard to get a run of fitness with his unfortunate knees that he has. But they have Jata and Dennis, and that's been really good mitigation against that. So it's not a bad balance overall. They're not setting the world alight, but you look at them right now and you think if those two strikers stay fit, stay motivated, and stay until the end of the season, which isn't necessarily a given with Jata, they should be up there. Even if performances don't improve that much, I think this Notts team with those two up top and this sort of decent floor is probably a top 3, 4, 5 team. And who knows what they might be able to do in January to make that even better. George Bromley, they're right up there as well because their centre-backs score every single game and won them a match against Accrington Stanley.
Just a very Bromley performance, this one. Stay in the game, be defensively pretty resolute, although Accrington had a couple of decent chances in the game. We saw Sean Whalley with a really good one-on-one that he hit over the bar in the first half, very unlike him. And then Paddy Madden had a decent opportunity as well in the second half too that was saved.
Of all of Aki's players, those are the ones. They've got so many young players that have come from non-league.
We want it to fall to them.
We've got Whalley and we've got Madden. Those are the ones we want.
Sinclair and Heafy have done all right when the ball's fallen to them this season.
Goddamn right they have.
But yes, I agree. And Waltony.
Yeah.
And then I think there is an element here where I think it might be Matthews at the back post from the first delivery kind of gets injured. And he has to get back up, and he's slow to do so. When the second ball comes in, I think he's just a little bit behind it, and Elek is there to finish off at the back post. A brilliant, it's Bromley, it's a set piece, it's a centre back, it's what they do, and it's been a blueprint for their success so often this season. I think Accrington away is a pretty difficult game. I think Aki's form in recent weeks and months has shown that they aren't one of the worst teams in the league as they were probably thought to be kind of in mid-October time. This is their first defeat in any competition since they were beaten 2-1 at Fleetwood on October the 25th. It's been a brilliant run by them. But Bromley, what more can you say? Teams have to work out how to stop them from scoring from set pieces, or they're just going to continue picking up points. 4th in the league now, 36 points from their 20 games.
Big win for Chesterfield at home to Barnet and taking their chances when they came through Lee Bonis. Huge from him. Huge period of adaptation that he went through where he really struggled to score in the first few months of the season. And Chesterfield are a team who create plenty for their number 9. And Will Grigg can't quite handle things physically as much as he used to. And it looked to me, and from what we heard about Lee Bonis, like he was going to be a really nice addition at the top of the pitch and probably finish chances at a decent rate. And it didn't happen for quite some months, but he now has 7 in 9 in all comps. He scored the first 2 goals here. He took his chances well. He has, gritted his teeth and he's got through the tough spell. And it's going to be huge for them. Chesterfield are missing Dylan Markanday and Armando Dobra at the moment through injury. 2 of the best attacking players in the league, most creative, best on the ball, highly technical, etc. And so this win really is significant. They still have lots of other good players. That's the beauty of Chesterfield, big budget, big squad. You've still got Duffy, you've still got Berry, you've still got plenty of others. Liam Mandeville, the old trusty Swiss Army knife. He can play basically any position. He played in an attacking role and scored the 3rd goal to win 3-1 here. So it's been a challenging period for Chesterfield for sure. They got a late equaliser in midweek against Cambridge to get a 1-1 draw through Carl McFadden, and now this win. So things are certainly looking up for Chesterfield, something to build on, and we want to just see it more consistently for them, the team that we thought would be the best team in the league that haven't looked like that yet this season. They kicked on after getting that late goal in midweek. There was a team, George, in Crewe, who midweek conceded an injury time equaliser against Newport when they had an extra player on the pitch. The fans were not very happy about that outcome. They'll have been a lot happier in the away end at Prenton Park.
Yeah, very different vibes, I reckon, at Prenton Park going into this one. Tranmere fans cock a hoop as how things have been going prior to this, with the win away at Barrow last time out, the win at Grimsby the time before that. Crewe, as you say, frustrated after squandering a 2-1 lead at home to 10-men team, bottom of the EFL. But Crewe were brilliant here. Max Sanders with 2 really good finishes in the first half. The first from open play, the second with a free kick that was laid off to him, which he pinged into the top corner. Emre Tezgel stuck his penalty away very well to continue his good goal-scoring form before Tommy O'Reilly did what he does, getting the ball on the right-hand side, cutting inside, firing at the near post this time. Again, we speak so often about Crewe's very good crop of young players whenever we talk about them with a big win, and certainly in Tezgel and in O'Reilly, they're kind of 2 of the best of those. Sanders a bit older, but by no means any less of a force. A kind of comedy own goal with James Connolly heading the ball over his own keeper to make it 4-1 was a consolation for Tranmere, but does nothing for them really. So back to earth with a bit of a bump for them. I'm intrigued by Crewe. They're kind of the one team in League Two, in my mind. You know, I kind of feel like I've got a good handle on most teams. With Crewe, it feels like in isolated games, they look like they could be a top 3 challenger for sure. And then we see games where they kind of let themselves down a little bit. They'll feel frustrated at having thrown away, obviously, lead against Newport, but also they were 1-0 up against Cambridge in the second half, and again they ended up losing 2-1. They came back 3 times against Chesterfield and 3-3 draw, so a bit different there. But yeah, I mean, they're a fun team for sure, and on the fringes of the playoffs now. But it feels like both Crewe and Chesterfield's wins this weekend were a bit of a message to everyone else in League Two saying we're still here, don't forget about us. Yeah,
and with big Mickey Demetriou out injured indefinitely, Billington having to move across from right back to centre back, and they've had some issues at right back, I think it's fair to say, in the last couple of games, and Lee Bell decided to stick Callum Aegis, who's played most of the season as a left winger or a number 10, just played him at right back. And guess what? He did really well. So fair play, Lee Bell. That is next level stuff. Newport 0, Fleetwood 2. Could Newport build on that midweek point at Crewe, which they snatched late on? No, they couldn't. They started fairly brightly in the first half here. Spellman hit the bar. But I don't think the blueprint to beat Newport is particularly complicated. I actually think Crewe got it wrong by being almost too gung-ho and being overconfident, because Newport aren't an absolutely horrendous team for a full 90 minutes. They're a team that can play, they can look after the ball relatively well. They're fairly blunt at the very top of the pitch, but you don't necessarily play Crewe and think we are absolutely dominating these in every aspect. They're just bad in both boxes. And so what you really need to do is what Fleetwood did here, and keep it tight. Don't overcommit, defend your box well enough, and just keep putting balls into their box, because consistently we've seen over the course of the season that Newport might defend their box well for 20 minutes. They might defend their box well for 40 minutes. They probably won't defend their box well any longer than that. 2 late first half goals. Potter heading home from 6 yards, unmarked, from a nice cross from Ennis on loan from Manchester United. And then Helm playing it through to Graydon. Great composure, 2-0. Game over in injury time of the first half, and a good win for Fleetwood Town. There were 5 draws in League Two. It's getting to that quite drawy stage of the season. Everyone a bit tired and cold, struggling to win. There were 2 2-all draws. Gillingham 2, Barrow 2. Saw Gills go 2-0 up. Chance for them to win for the first time in a while, but they didn't. 5 draws in a row, giving up a 2-0 lead as Barrow kind of perked up as the sun went down. Gordon with an amazing header into the top corner for 2-1, and then he tucked home across from the right. This came after Andy Wing had been sacked in midweek. Neil McDonald, the caretaker manager, has overseen a good comeback to get a good point. Look, I think we both like the cut of Andy Wing's jib, I think it's fair to say. And I certainly think that if you go back and listen to the 1-24s, and you listen to George raise some concerns about what had happened to the squad and how much weaker it looked to previous Barrow squads, and Wing potentially was going to have a tough task with expectations being around a similar level to previous seasons, but maybe without the squad or even the budget to reflect that. They've been poor to watch. They have not scored very many goals. There's not been very much for Barrow fans to look forward to or enjoy. They've been poor. Let's be honest. They're on 21 points now from 20 games. They're 4 points above the relegation zone. It's not been a good season whatsoever. Andy Wing changed his Twitter bio not long after getting sacked to lost 4 of my last 15 games. So he certainly wanted to make the point that like this could be a lot worse. Like there are teams in the league losing 10 games in a row. And Barrow, not a good side, but certainly not absolutely horrendous, certainly not being dominated in most of their games, just not quite good enough at the top end of the pitch. I would certainly point to the fact that a team that has one of the best midfields in League Two, with Spence, with Gotts, with Campbell, they all leave on a free. It's very hard to replace a midfield like that. Not just the individuals, but the way that they work as a unit. And I think we see that this season with Barrow. Some of the recruitment has been, well, it hasn't aged very well, particularly going after players like Tyler Walker, Reece Healy, Rakeem Harper, guys who, you might recognise playing at a higher level, but very infrequently, very inconsistently, and without staying fit for long periods of time. Guess what? They've been appearing infrequently, they've been playing inconsistently, they've been struggling to stay fit for long periods of time. So where do Barrow turn next? We'll find out. I think if they could tempt someone like Matt Taylor, that would be a really good outcome for them. Top of the market at the moment, McDonald, the caretaker, Noel Hunt, Steve Evans, Gary Monk, Mike Williamson, Tom Brady, Leighton Baines. Some interesting names on there. George, which of the draws did you find most interesting?
Walsall.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say
1-0
Walsall.
against Shrewsbury. So I tweeted when I saw that Daniel Kanu had scored a good goal.
Yeah.
And what a goal. Like, what a goal. What a
fun
finish.
Player.
I tweeted, I feel like I've seen this film before. And then, because this is Walsall, top of League Two, in December, looking imperious, with a loney striker who looks too good for the level, scoring loads of goals. Yeah, do you remember what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened last year with Nathan Lowe.
They won like 10 in a
and
row.
He was recalled.
And then they were miles clear, and then I can't remember what happened at the end of the season.
Do you know what else? Do you know what other film I've seen before?
Go on.
I've seen Walsall dominating a game of football, creating by far the best chances, and not winning the game because the opposition scored a deflected strike from 25 yards. And that's also what happened here as well. With Tom Anderson, a player that doesn't score too many goals, albeit this is the 9th consecutive season that he scored in the EFL, despite having never scored more than 2 goals in a season.
Wow.
So that's quite fun. Let fly from just outside the area, deflected off Aidan Flint and went in the back of the net. He was very keen to tell everyone that it was his goal as he ran back, which is fair enough. Stevenage weren't great within the game, and Walsall missed an unbelievable opportunity late on. Jamie Jellis just passing the ball wide of the post from kind of 12 yards when the goal was gaping. So, not every team is going to be able to win games when they're the better team, but Walsall fans, understandably, are now slightly panicking about Charlton's worsening form and Daniel Kanu's improving form, because it would be a bit of a disaster if they were to lose him. You would think that the club would have learnt a lot from last season and will be preparing to mitigate that loss if it does happen far better than they did last season. But we'll have to wait and see, because he's such an important player for them. And I would recommend going out and finding the goal. It's just a strike from kind of 25 yards or so. A player full of confidence, doesn't really need to take it on there at all. Could have taken the ball further off the underside of the crossbar. Some hit.
3 more draws. Crawley 2, Oldham 2. We had Loft for Crawley. We had Mellon and Stevens for Oldham, but we had Shimanga for Crawley 2-2. Cheltenham 1, Harrogate 1. Harrogate battling hard in the face of their really poor form, and indeed battling from 1-0 down to get a point that they probably deserved on balance through Conor McElhenney's penalty. And Milton Keynes 1, Cambridge 1. Callum Patterson for MK. Sully Kai. What a strike for Cambridge. It's 4 draws in a row for Cambridge since we shook hands on a Cambridge top 7 bet. You may remember you said yes, I said no. 4 draws in a row since then. Interesting.
Need to do better than that, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. MK, 1 point from their 2 games since the last Monday pod. Still not looking great, to be honest, for MK, but there they are in 5th and probably tooling up for an interesting January transfer window. Really fun weekend across the EFL. Hopefully you've enjoyed us breaking it down. We're going to be back on Thursday with a betting show. There's kind of a slightly wild weekend of EFL football in that we've got Reading Luton on Thursday. There's 5 games across the 3 leagues on Friday night. We've got Saturday action. We'll be back next Monday with a show on the 22nd, and then the Christmas schedule will commence, and we'll break it down for you on the pod next Monday. Thank you very much. Pray for my laptop. Go well.